Now, up until this comment, the conversation was going well. That's why it threw me off so much to have a white man say this to a black woman who was coming to him with concerns in relation to him for black people. But this isn't someone I feel comfortable being in office when we have a truly amazing candidate like Jasmine Crockett as an option.
Oh my God, I just cannot take her seriously. Up next, we got to talk about one of the dumbest stories I've encountered in a while. And guys, that's saying something. Y'all know the depths of Delulu that I just swim through every day. It's bleak out in these streets, and yet it somehow gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So the Democratic Party, because today is a day that ends in Y, is descending into civil war and chaos in Texas this time over fake racism and baseless allegations and wannabe victimhood. This is my shock face. Not this again. We never heard this story before, right? Anyway, the context here that y'all need to know is the Senate Texas race for the United States Senate in Texas, which is, of course, a red state, is featuring a competitive primary for the Democratic nominee. So who is going to be the Democratic candidate to represent the Democratic Party in the Texas statewide race to try to go against either John Cornyn or Ken Paxton, or whoever the Republican nominee is going to be, and try to flip that seat blue. Now, it's a really uphill task because it is Texas, so it's probably not going to happen anyway, and really none of these candidates have super great odds, but there are a couple different candidates. One is Jasmine Crockett, who is a congresswoman from Texas and kind of a far-left firebrand, darling of MSNBC and CNN, loves to pop off and spout off about mediocre white boys and bad-built, butch, bleach blonde bodies and all this stuff, and I find her to be one of the most maddening members of Congress. And then she is running against somebody named James Tallarico. And Tallarico is kind of a soft-spoken, he's a state legislator from Texas. He's a progressive, but he calls himself Christian. He's soft-spoken. I'm not sure his views are actually very moderate, but he comes off as a more moderate aesthetic, and he appeals to people's kind of higher sense of humanity and charity and empathy. And he's much more polished and presentable in terms of not coming off as radical or divisive or hyper-partisan than Jasmine Crockett. So the two of them are facing off in this competitive primary to see who's going to be the nominee. Now, there had been another guy involved in this race named Colin Allred, who used to be a congressman, and he, I think, initially entered the race and then dropped out when Tallarico and Crockett got in. But at one point, it looked like it was going to be Tallarico versus Colin Allred, and now it's instead Tallarico versus Jasmine Crockett. And now here we get to the fake and spurious accusations of racism part, because any Democratic interest squabbling has to descend into victimhood and false claims of, some form of microaggression or what have you, that is tearing apart the party and causing chaos in this primary. It all started from an anonymous allegation on TikTok by some random influencer, micro-influencer, suggesting that James Tallarico had said to her in person something racist by calling Colin Allred a mediocre black man. Let's listen to this allegation or this video that has caught on fire and sparked a whole Senate race controversy to the point where Tallarico is addressing it. Colin Allred is calling him out, and Jasmine Crockett is presumably benefiting from all the chaos. Let's watch this original video.
James Tallarico told me that he signed up to run against a mediocre black man, not a formidable and intelligent black woman. And I want to explain why this is problematic. So I plan on voting for him when he was running against Colin Allred, the mediocre black man that he's referring to. Now, no matter how you feel about Colin Allred, the man is an attorney, a former professional football player, and a former congressman. But I'm not bringing this forward because I want to bring any more negativity to this race. I care way too much about Texas to do something like that. But
as I do something exactly like that. Me when I lie, I'm not doing this to cause controversy or start drama as I cause controversy and start drama. Also, I just got to say, from the jump, this does not sound real. Sounds fake to me. You're telling me a woke Democrat meeting a black woman supporter started talking about somebody and was like, oh, well, he's a mediocre black man. That just sounds like extremely fake, not believable at all. And of course, she has no evidence other than her say-so that this happened. Now, what he may have said is that Colin Allred was a mediocre man, and then she's extrapolating it to say, well, he said a mediocre black man, and that's offensive because he was talking about a black man, but a black man can still be mediocre, y'all. Like, I'm sorry. Equality means equal judgment and shade for all. That's how I view it, at least. But I will also say that it is funny to me that this is being viewed, calling someone a mediocre black man, if he did say that, which again I don't believe, but let's just take it at face value for a second, is being viewed as some sort of racist act. When Jasmine Crockett has publicly ranted and raved about mediocre white boys. And I think the way she spoke about that genuinely was quite racist, but all these people are fine with it. And now, if he said this, which I don't believe, by their own logic, isn't that actually fine? I don't know. Anyway, let's keep listening to her.
But I do think it is my responsibility to bring something like this forward. And I do think it also indicates some things that are pretty important when it comes to how he's moving with his campaign.
I'm sorry, but it sounds like she is coming forward with some like serious assault allegation. She's like, it's my responsibility to come forward. I'm honestly shocked the word survivor hasn't left her lips yet. And yet it's just one phrase she took out of context from a conversation with him that I don't even believe happened. It's actually beyond parody. Yet people took this so seriously. This random woman on TikTok popping off like this, they're still doing this.
With his campaign. The obvious intimidation of Jasmine Crockett, along with the racially charged disrespect of Colin Allred as a black man, indicates something deeper than just a overly familiar.
The racially charged disrespect. Calling him a mediocre black man. Y'all need to touch grass so bad. Y'all would not know what grass was if you tripped and landed face down in the dirt.
Familiar comment that is coded in a compliment for a black woman. So getting into the conversation that led to the comment from James, I was angry and concerned after receiving an email and a text message from James Carville on Tallarico's behalf for donations. James Carville is a Democratic strategist that has made comments recently about the need for Democrats to drop woke politics, and even wrote an article in November for the New York Times saying exactly that. And I'm always going to advocate for black people because I don't care about how much you talk about affordability, housing, healthcare, whatever. If woke politics is not included in that, which directly impacts black people, then we're left out of that conversation in politics.
All right, that's a whole aside I won't get into. But James Carville is a legendary Democratic strategist, and she got mad that Tallarico was accepting his support and working with him. And then she suggests that he doesn't care about black people because he's against woke politics. That's not what that means, love. What that means is that he thinks Democrats should focus on offering material economic support and policies to people rather than identity politics and virtue signaling and all this dumb shit you're obviously obsessed with. Like, she doesn't even understand the things she's mad about.
Conversation and policy. So I made that known to the campaign as someone that has a possibility of sitting in that seat. Now, up until this comment, the conversation was going well. That's why it threw me off so much to have a white man say this to a black woman who was coming to him with concerns in relation to him for black people. But this isn't someone I feel comfortable being in office when we have a truly amazing candidate like Jasmine Crockett as an option.
Oh my God, I just cannot take her seriously. She's like, I just don't feel comfortable with someone like him in office. Oy vey. Listen, what I will say about this is this makes it sound, this last bit of context from her, even more fake. Cue the Candace Owens gif, like fake and gay. You're telling me you approached a white progressive man who's running for the Democratic Senate seat in this competitive primary, who's very sensitive, who tries his best to be as unoffensive and uncontroversial as possible on this kind of thing, as a black woman, and you expressed concerns to him that he wasn't doing enough to support black people, or was he turning against woke politics and black people? And his response was to call Colin Allred to your face a mediocre black man. I just don't believe that, because obviously you have somebody confronting you who comes off as like a wannabe, racially aggrieved, identity obsessed black activist. You're not going to then say something like that that could so easily be misconstrued or be misrepresented. And so I just do not believe this woman, and she has absolutely no evidence other than her say-so that this happened. Yet Colin Allred, the Democrat in question, decided to take this entirely at face value, assume that it was true, and publicly blast James Tallarico as a result. Listen to his video about this. Very bizarre and creepy angle that it was shot from as well.
Morning, everybody. It's cold out here, and I got some steam coming off my head because I'm to finish my workout. Got some steam coming out of my ears, too. I understand that James Tallarico had the temerity and the audacity to say to a black woman that he had signed up to run against a mediocre black man, meaning me, not a formidable, intelligent black woman, meaning Jasmine Crockett. Let me just break this down into a few segments here. First of all, let me just give you some free advice, James. If you want to compliment black women, just do it.
I love how he's just assuming this random woman's TikTok account of a conversation that supposedly happened is true and 100% valid, and he's bashing James Tallarico as essentially racist because of it. That's actually insane.
Do it. Just do it. Don't do it while also tearing down a black man. Okay? We've seen that play before. We're sick and tired of it. We're tired of folks using praise for black women to mask criticism for black men. That's not good for our community. It's not good. It doesn't work, and we know what you're doing. Okay? So if next time you want to praise a black woman, just do that. Leave black men out of it. Just leave a lot of things out of it. Thank you for taking off the mask. Thank you for telling us who you really are and what you really think.
Again, on this fake accusation, totally unproven from a random woman's TikTok. By the way, that woman is now claiming that her Instagram account has been deleted at Tallarico's behest, as if a political campaign can just get people's social media accounts deleted willy-nilly with absolutely no evidence. So this is not a stable person making this accusation. He's not only believing it and calling out James Tallarico, but he's accusing him of going as like a mask-off racist for calling someone a mediocre black man, who, by the way, we should discuss that it's actually entirely possible that Colin Allred is both mediocre and a black man, and that the phrase mediocre black man would just be true about him. I don't like to speak about people like that because I don't really believe in that kind of identity characterizations and that sort of thing. But Jasmine Crockett, who this dude loves, 100% believes in that and speaks like that all the time about white people. So it's either fine or it's not. But y'all seem to have a very blatant double standard here. And again, I can't get over the fact that he's like crashing out behind these crazy eyes. And yes, I know I have crazy eyes sometimes, but I'd like to think I'd have a little more self-awareness than to choose this camera angle over something a woman on TikTok says James Tallarico said. That's it. That's all he's going off of. Wow.
Or what you really think. And goodbye, okay? Because we're on our way, and we don't need you to come with us, and we don't need your help to get there. So with that being said, go.
I love the arrogance and entitlement of that. We don't need you. We're on our way. Y'all are losing. Like, Democrats are struggling, and you're telling prominent, successful, white progressive man, in this case, we don't need your help. We don't need you as part of this because supposedly you said something that sort of hurts my feelings. Like, I cannot believe we're still doing this in Democrats, and I shouldn't say we, because I'm not sitting with y'all, but I cannot believe they're still doing this. It's actually beyond parody. Anyway, I'm gonna let him finish.
Go vote for Jasmine Crockett. This man should not be our nominee for the United States Senate. I wasn't gonna get involved in this race, but listen, don't come for me unless I send for you. Okay, James? And keep my name out of your mouth while you're at it.
Again, based on what? Based on some random girl or woman on TikTok saying this. He doesn't even know that it's real, and he's just assuming, and he's getting all dramatic. It's absolutely unhinged. And I'm sorry, but it is pathetic beyond words that the Democratic Party is still engaging in this kind of identity politics, infighting, and tearing itself apart at the seams when they just so desperately need to act semi-normal and rational and offer like a normal alternative to Trump and his overreach. He's not popular. The polls are going against a lot of the things that he's doing, but they just can't help themselves but to kind of descend into this chaos. And I find it really, really pathetic. So, of course, James Tallarico has now responded to this totally real, super serious controversy. Here is his statement on the video. Official statement from James Tallarico on All Red Video. Quote, "This is a mischaracterization of a private conversation. In my praise of Congresswoman Crockett, I described Congressman Allred's method of campaigning as mediocre, but his life and service are not. I would never attack him on the basis of race. As a black man in America, Congressman Allred has had to work twice as hard to get where he is. I understand how my critique of the congressman's campaign could be interpreted given this country's painful legacy of racism, and I care deeply about the impact my words have on others. I have always said that despite our disagreements, I deeply respect Congressman Allred. We're all on the same team. So there's two things about this statement that are important to note. One is that he essentially denies the allegation that he called Colin Allred a mediocre black man, and he suggests what I thought, which is that he probably said something about Allred being mediocre, and then that was extrapolated by this random TikTok lady to mean he was calling him a mediocre black man. But he never said those words. Those are not words I can see coming out of James Tallarico's mouth. And then the part where I lose sympathy for James Tallarico, though I do understand the position that he's in. He's running in a Democratic primary, and those are going to be very progressive voters who are going to be annoying and woke, and you have to try to appease them. But it's also dumb because none of you have a chance anyway. But as a black man, Colin Allred had to work twice as hard to get where he is. Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, we could talk about that, but sure. But then saying this, I understand how my critique of the congressman's campaign could be interpreted given this country's painful legacy of racism. No, actually, at some point you should just nut up and say, it's stupid, get over it, build a bridge and get over it. I didn't say anything offensive. You're not going to show me on the doll where the microaggression touched you. Like if I was James Tallarico, I'd put out a statement saying, I apologize for nothing. Y'all get over it. You can keep melting down over microaggressions. I'm going to be working on getting poor people health care. That's what I would be saying, right? But of course, they have to pander. They have to bend the knee. They have to act like, oh, I'm so deeply sorry. You did nothing wrong. Have a little bit of spine. Goodness grace. Ugh. Anyway, I find this whole story ridiculous. Here's one final bit. Rolling Stone reporter Nikki McCann Ramirez writes, Allred jumped on selfie mode to accuse Tallarico of racism, attack his religious commitments, and posted it on social media without any sort of verification. He is now upset and surprised Tallarico isn't calling him to grovel. And then she attached a quote from a CNN article. In an interview on Monday evening, Allred told CNN he felt the campaign's statement is a, quote, admission that he said what he said and expressed surprise that he hadn't heard from Tallarico directly. Okay, so Colin Allred apparently is in fact mediocre because he can't read or understand words. James Tallarico's statement explicitly repudiated the idea that he had categorically called Colin Allred a mediocre black man. But Colin Allred read that statement and and misinterpreted it as admitting to having said the thing he was accused of saying. So I guess you are a mediocre black man. I don't know what to tell you because you're not very bright if that's how you read that statement. And then I'm sorry, but this idea that you expected the guy you baselessly accused of racism and posted this vaguely threatening, unhinged video about to call you and grovel. I mean, I can't say that expectation is actually totally off base because a few years ago he probably would have, but the fact that a Democrat would ever expect such a thing is like ridiculous beyond parody. And so is this whole situation. You guys, the Democrats are not going to be okay if they cannot get over this affliction that is identity politics. And to see them, we've seen this in many other instances, see where they devolve into civil war with each other over the most minor of like identity aggressions. And then it all gets weaponized in the most bad faith ways imaginable. It is just so, on one level, it's funny. I'm sitting here munching my popcorn, laughing at these fools. But on another level, it's like actually so depressing and so bleak that this is where we're at and that they're still doing this. I don't know that they'll ever learn. I really don't. Y'all will have to let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube if you aren't yet, and hit the like button while you're at it.